Well, you can say that North Korea is being quite provocative, getting ready to launch a missile. But then again, they're a sovereign nation, and they do have the right to test their their rockets and their nuclear weapons. We shouldn't be so worried. You may think. Well, it's a terrorist state, and from that you may think that my next thing is going to say, let's just nuke them all or something like that. Um, but actually, I'm going to take a much more subtle approach to this problem. If you've read a book called Asia's Deadly Triangle, which I'd recommend, you will note that the most likely places going to be a big confrontation in the world is going to be East Asia. It's also the only place that nuclear weapons have actually been used by the Americans against Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And that is why the Japanese are not too pleased that a Soviet style state is getting prepared to send a rocket with a satellite or otherwise over their territory towards the continental United States, which is also where, you know, the United States are a bit worried about losing Los Angeles or something sometime in the future. Now, North Korea is not just a military, a nuclear military power. It also has 735 ships, some of the most submarines in the world. It has a large air force, and also it has a tremendous amount of missiles and guns aimed at Seoul, the South Korean capital. Nobody wants a war in North Korea. It would be apocalyptic. Um, what's for certain is the conventional forces of North Korea would be slaughtered because the Japanese, the South Koreans, and the Americans have been preparing for this war for the last 50 years, just as they have. Also, there's the question of civilian casualties. Um, well, because at a certain point, my gut tells me, you know, they have a right to launch their missile, but not over a territory of countries that they know it's a provocative act. It's there as a negotiation tool to scare the Japanese and to scare the South Koreans, to scare the Americans. What is this irrational power going to do? And it is a very, it's not perhaps a rational actor like Iran is or some other countries. This is a country that has let its own people starve to death, tortured its own people to death. It's as close as you can get to a actual a religious, atheistic religious country, if you like. You've got the cult of the leader there and everything else. So you can say it's a terrorist state. But how do you deal with terrorism? Well, I'd like to think of it as that you're dealing with a disease that is infecting the host country itself. If North Korea as closest ally is China. China is a large country and it's next to Russia. Russia also has done some things to support North Korea. So why don't we negotiate with the vast expanse of Siberian tundra and Chinese desert that the North Koreans fire their missile and test it over those ranges into those empty spaces rather than the Pacific. Of course, there's more risk to the Chinese and Russians doing this. But if they're so happy to support North Korea, then they must be the ones who take the risk. If the Japanese or Americans shoot down this missile, it would be like an act of war that could spark it all off. What we're interested in is trying to stop the problems of an armed conflict actually starting up in Korea, which is much more likely than in many other places in the world. Perhaps the only equal would be the Straits of Taiwan between China and Taiwan. We must treat this as I think we must treat it very subtly and very carefully. We've got to try and make this regime as rational as we can, and that might mean slight policy of appeasement, but we want to try and save as many lives as possible, and try and build up trade relations and try and open the state up more and more, so that when people start to see in North Koreans themselves start to see that the West is not a threat to them, that they can open up their economy, they're going to get more from it. They'll eventually get to the position where they will start to question the ideology that they've been taught. Of course, the more hardliners who remember the Korean War are still around and who believe the Americans attacked them instead of the communists attacking who. But that's not really the point at the moment. The point is to try and not a blame game, but to try and save as many lives as possible. Now, you can't allow them to send a missile over the territory of Japan. The Japanese will shoot it down. And if the North Koreans have already tested a nuclear bomb, they've already demolished a mountain, the Japanese could build a bomb in 4 weeks to 4 months. They've got a nuclear processing plant which takes the waste from nuclear power stations in England, as it happens, and processes them to be renewable fuel rods. So they've already got the infrastructure to build a bomb. You don't want a nuclear armed string of countries in that area where there's 6th of the world's economic output, and Japan, of course, is on paper the world's second biggest economy after the EU or America, whoever you believe is the top economy. Now, could we win a war against North Korea? I think we could, but America is very overstretched now. I think a lot of Hillary Clinton's words are not helpful and quite provocative. She's trying to use coercion against a power that has not been moved emotionally by the loss of millions of its own people. So what's it going to do but just spit on Hillary Clinton's feeble threats? She's going to have a Deng Xiaoping moment, like when Margaret Thatcher went to China to threaten them over Hong Kong, and she got soundly rebuffed. There's a thing about Northeast Asian people, is that they don't like to lose face, and that makes them quite irrational if you push them into a corner. I'm using those words from a diplomat who had some dealings with the Chinese, Japanese and Koreans. People don't like to lose face there. Is considering that the North Koreans consider America as their mortal enemy, we've really got to do the long game of trying to wait till Kim Jong-il dies, and to gradually build up a liberal opposition to him inside Korea, try and open that country up so that the people don't starve, and gradually try and normalise relations. But I think China and Russia can have pressure being put on them to get the North Koreans to fly the rockets over their territory, and if they're not willing to do that, then they can put pressure on them. I think it would be far more acceptable for China to invade North Korea than the United States, for instance, if it came down to it. And since China and the United States have a symbiotic relationship economically, it will make more sense as well for a communist state to interfere. I think China has to have a lead role here to get the North Koreans into having economic areas which are open to capitalism. Well, I hope I've surprised you by not being so militaristic and hardline, and go for the role of peace.